Do games have to look good?
You threatening me?
Well, the short answer is no, but actually kinda depends. Recently, I've been making a game called Stick Around, which is a small prototype I wanted to make to kind of prove my point for this video. And it is made in the Unity engine, and some of you guys probably don't care, but I've been boasting about the Godot engine over the past 3 videos, and I think there might be a few people calling me a hypocrite for doing this. I mean, like, you know, Unity is not that bad. Former Unity developer myself, I mean, like HDRP, I mean, it's trash, alright? It's trash. Over the past few years, there has been a huge rise in indie games taking over the scene. With games like Lethal Company, Content Warning, Among Us, it's quite crazy how these games beat AAA titles in terms of player count and sometimes even revenue. Like, have you seen Killer Bean? Like, the fuck is this? And this is when I came to the conclusion, some players just don't really care if a game looks good. Just like how a lot of you don't seem to care about how my camera looks. Now, looks good is a weird term, something I'm not. Generally, when people think of a game that looks good, it means like literally a game that looks good graphically. A game can look good by just having good gameplay, maybe a good art style, maybe it can have good sound design. And some of these games just do something around these areas that make it so fun to play. I'm gonna show you what I do in my game that makes it fun. I mean, no one has played it yet, but hey, it can be pretty fun. Now, an art style is probably one of the most important things to make a game cohesive instead of just looking like an asset flip. You probably want to avoid your game being called an asset flip at all costs. This matters because you still want to visually please the player a little, and yes, visuals can also mean fun. If we take a look at examples like Borderlands, you'll notice that they have this pencil shader sketched across all assets. This just makes it look super distinct. Now, on an indie scale, you're not gonna have a budget like Borderlands. Like, come on, let's face it, we don't have that type of money. But hey, you can achieve similar results if you're smart with how you make your assets. The developer of choo-choocharles actually flipped store-bought assets and put his weird handmade look to it by scribbling all over the textures. So for this game, I don't really have any fancy shaders or anything, but I just thought of making all the assets look simple in design or making it low poly. You're probably also wondering why I'm going with such a flat art style that's uninteresting and boring when I can just make something as good as this. Also, I'm sure there's people out there judging me for making this, but hey, I am not one of those guys, okay? I have my reasons for making that, alright? Okay, actually, those reasons are pretty bad too. Well, look, and actually, this is why I don't really like people who insist on making everything look good graphically. If you make a model like this, you'd have to probably make everything look good as this, else it'll be out of place. This is why you see some indie games have the most wackiest art style because they're kinda limited. This is specific to 3D games, and 3D artists call this term poly budget. This would pretty much determine what type of art style you're going for. So if you're using Unreal with Quixel assets and all of these fancy effects and characters, that would mean you'd have to probably make everything else look the same. And hey, what if you are the type to have money and you could just buy a bunch of assets and stack them up? Well, if you're anything like me, I highly doubt you'd have the money. Now that we got the art style powered down and we know what visuals we want to go for, it's time we crank it up a notch with the gameplay. Now, over the past 10 to 15 years, gamers just know what feels like a game. And one of the most similar mechanics in almost any game is movement. If you f this part up, yeah, say goodbye to your player. Bro would just quit the game faster than I would want to quit life. And that's pretty fast. And almost any game I've made before this that consisted of movement, I always fucked it up. Almost every time.
Oh, that's nauseating.
It was either too floaty or too smooth or too snappy. So what do? Simple. Just let other people play.
Congratulations, you just made a PS1 game in 2024.
Wait, PS1 games are good though.
Okay, hold on. There's something really so weird to... Oh. Maybe you just should make a better game, you know?
My game doesn't suck that bad, alright? It doesn't suck that bad. Right, Kaya? Doesn't suck that bad, right? Speaking to the mic. I guess, hey, come on. My dog agrees, alright? When you're making a game, you're generally going to have to base your stuff around a core mechanic. This game is a hack and slash, which would mean you'd have to basically just run and hit stuff. That would mean you can't lazy out on mechanics like this and think you can just get away with it. For example, the player has the ability to use a katana and attack, which means I'd have to spend most of my budget on the animation of the attacks. So I proceeded to do exactly that. The problem I was facing, however, I was just not satisfied with how stiff it looked in-game. Now there's 3 ways to solve this problem. The first one, well, give up. But the second one, I could just spend my time making the animations better. But I'm too lazy to do that. The third option is to add some physical animation on top of the keyframed animation. And you can see how much of a difference that makes. Okay, look, so in Blender you have these things called rigs. These are basically bones that you control so that the animator can animate it. Now when you animate something and save it, that data gets stored as keyframes on a timeline. Now let's say you modify the rotation of the bone to something else and play the animation again. That wouldn't work because these animations are now keyframed. But what you could do is add a secondary animation that drives on top of this animation with the help of an add-on. Now I wanted to do this in the engine, and unfortunately I'm not really the brightest programmer out there. It's not like I didn't try to do it myself, I just couldn't figure out how. That's exactly why I didn't choose Godot for this job, because there wasn't any add-on or some sort of plugin that could help me with this. In Unity, however, there is something called Bone Stimulator, which I actually bought for $1 a few years ago. Hey, I don't have a lot of money, but something like this for $1 and it's customizable and gives you source code access? Sign me up, bruh! I mean, I'm all for open source, but hey, people need to eat. Come on. Okay, so I know earlier in the video I mentioned about games like Lethal Company dominating the scene. Well, yeah, that may have almost nothing to do with what I've mentioned so far. Other than the game just being streamer material and, you know, multiplayer, it does do one thing really well. It just sounds fucking good. Arguably, one of the most important steps in game development is sound. That is, unless the player is deaf. Now, this game emphasizes on proximity voice chat, and the rest of the audio stands up to it. Now, I'm a pretty lazy guy. I'm not gonna try to act cool in front of you and, you know, show how I make sounds from scratch by, you know, using the stuff around me. Or actually because I don't really know how to do that. But hey, I have a huge library of sounds that I've collected over the past few years, and I still use them to this day for almost any game I want to make. I just put them into Audacity, remove the metadata so that people think I made it myself, and there you go. Okay, so we covered graphics, gameplay, and how lazy I am and can't get any bitch. Now, I'm running this game on a pretty good laptop. Also, wait, I've been getting some comments about my laptop specs. I'll answer them in the end of the video. But this laptop can pretty much run anything. But there's billions of other people in the world that run games on a toaster. And even if they aren't, they could probably have an average PC at best, and your game still wouldn't run well on it. Yeah, that's a concern. And that's where you probably have to think about performance. Now, you're probably wondering why I would care because my game looks like shit. To understand this, you need to know what draw calls are. When you render an object, that whole process is basically a draw call. Regardless of whether you have high poly or low poly objects, this number won't reduce unless you know what you're doing. For starters, every object has a material. A material can have textures and stuff. So if you have two of the same identical objects but have different materials applied to it, that would need two separate draw calls. And if you stack this number up with many different materials applied to each object, this number can rack up pretty quickly. You basically want to reduce this as much as possible. So if you have two different objects with the same material, this can be one draw call depending on a batching technique. Now, I'm not going to get into what that is, but essentially you could basically have so many objects rendered onto your screen in one draw call with this technique, but only if the material is the same. So basically you want to reduce the number of materials used in your game as much as possible, which currently I haven't done yet, which I guess kinda makes me a hypocrite for yapping about this. But hey, I have a settings menu, and you can turn off motion blur. Dude, I have a menu where you can turn off motion blur. How is that not in? Okay, so the game runs fine, but it doesn't feel as great. I could actually get away with just having the core mechanic in place and make the effects subtle. For my game, I just added a screen shake, a hit stop, and a cool combo system whenever I attack. With that, you can see how the game can still look good even while looking like shit. In conclusion, what I mean is, players just don't care if you have high detail models and 4K textures and shit. We have already reached the pinnacle of graphics where that stuff just doesn't impress gamers as much anymore. As long as you have a charm and art style, you can pretty much get away with people telling your game looks like shit.
Just made a PS1 game in 2024.
But anyway, that's about it. If you want to see this game being released, it will be in the next video. So hey, I don't mean to sound like a YouTuber again, but sub up to your boy. We're close to 10K, and when we reach that goal, I'll do a camera reveal. Also, for those curious, I'm not going to be dropping Godot or the Godot project that I'm working on. I'm just taking a break from it, and I just kind of want to make a, a whole game. It's not that Godot is bad or anything. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in like 3 years. Bye-bye. So a lot of y'all have been asking me what my laptop specs are. I mean, they're alright. It's alright. I can actually show it to you. 1 second. Ignore the trash setup. The lighting is so bad. Holy shit. It's an RTX 3060 i7 what was it? i7 11th gen. What else? Alright, a 1080p screen. This is just my spare monitor that I just use for like, it's actually 720p by the way. It's trash. I have a Razer mini microphone. Alright, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I have a Logitech mouse. Logitech, what was it called? G502 Hero. 144 hertz refresh rate screen with 1080p. Yes. The laptop has 16 gigs of RAM. Yeah, no, it's a pretty decent laptop. To be honest, I have actually like, I fucked the control key. Oh my god, I was playing the finals and I like fucking, you had to like press control to slide, and I think I fucking fucked up the key while I was doing it. And yes, I have an external keyboard, but this one's broken. Like, I mean, not exactly broken, but like, so like I fucked up this key, and now I can't get a replacement because like there's no HP omens. Oh yeah, this is HP omen by the way. Anyways, I'll see you guys in another video. Bye.